You think that if you won the lottery tomorrow, your happiness would skyrocket forever. And if you lost the ability to walk tomorrow, you'd be sad forever. But you are wrong. See, that's what almost everybody imagines. But here's the truth. Within 6 months, you'd return to almost exactly the same baseline level of happiness. And that's not just some opinion or philosophy. It's what one of the most famous studies in psychological history tells us. In 1978, Philip Brickman, Dan Cotes, and Ronnie Janoff Bullman published a study that shook how we think about happiness. They compared two groups. There were recent lottery winners and then recent accident victims who had become paraplegic or quadriplegic. Here's what they found. The lottery winners reported a short-term boost in happiness, but within 1 year, they weren't significantly happier than before. In fact, they reported less pleasure in their everyday activities than the control group who had had nothing happen to them. The accident victims, as expected, reported low happiness right after, because I would too if I couldn't walk. But within 6 months, only 6 months, their reported happiness levels had risen back to the baseline that they were at before. That's crazy. But you think about it, life goes on. You're still going to derive the same pleasure, the same happiness on a day-to-day basis from any of the events as long as you're living. And this phenomenon is called hedonic adaptation. No matter what happens to us, winning millions, losing everything, our minds adapt. We return to a baseline happiness. If you've ever heard someone talk about the hedonic treadmill, this is what it is. You're running on this treadmill trying to get to the same spot because it's really hard to move that baseline of happiness. And so this is why we're often disappointed. We imagine the future in extreme. If I just get that job or that relationship or that big break, I'll be happy forever. Or if I fail, if I lose, the worst happens. I'll never recover. These are both illusions. They're examples of what psychologists call the arrival fallacy. It's when you think, when I get X, I will have Y. I will have this result. I will be happy when I do this. The truth is, you're already on the other side of your last set of goals. So what makes you think that when you get to your next set of goals and you accomplish them, you will feel that way? Well, this study shows that you will not feel a different way. Your brain is wired to normalize and to reset. But here's the powerful part. Well, events don't permanently change our happiness. There are ways to do so with habits and mindset. And so that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to help you guys with research that I found, raise baseline happiness, because honestly, this is still something I'm trying to do every day. And I think that's one of the main goals of all of this self-improvement and everything, is to raise our baseline so we're not constantly resetting. So research has found that there are ways to do this so that when you adapt, you're adapting to a higher level of well-being. Number one, ironically, and the reason that I started this podcast, calling it the Grateful Podcast, is gratitude practice. In a 2003 study done by Emmons and McCullough, I think that's how you pronounce that, it showed that participants who wrote down the things that they're grateful for each week reported significantly higher optimism and well-being. They continued to do so over time, and it wasn't reset. This is because gratitude rewires the entire brain's reward system, training it to find joy in ordinary moments. So think about it like this. Your baseline for something that will bring you joy ends up lowering. And I think a lot of times in society, this is looked down upon. I know just the other day, I took a picture of a building I thought was really cool. And some people were like, you have such low standards. And I took it as a compliment, because I was able to find joy in something that they just regarded as ordinary. And I think that's one of my goals in life. I want to be able to find joy in as many of the little things as I can. It's not weak to find something cool or joyful or have something bring you some type of happiness. I think it's actually very strong. embracing life and everything that comes in it, right? We want to be able to find joy in everything we can. And a lot of us are so numb to everything, and our brain circuitry is so off with pleasure and dopamine that we have to have something very stimulating to bring us joy. But if we can practice gratitude and rewire our brain and have a baseline where we find anything simple joyful, we live a much more joyful life. We live a much happier life. And I think that's a goal that all of us should have, to let the little things be awesome. Let the fact that the sun's shining this morning put a smile on your face. So that's that for gratitude. But the second thing is relationships. Now, I'm going to cite a study that I'm sure you've heard before, but the Harvard Adult Development Study, the 85-year-old famous longitudinal study, found that the single greatest predictor of happiness and health wasn't money or fame, it was strong relationships. Now, I'm sure you've heard that before, but it just reinforces what we know and what we need to keep reinforcing in our lives, not through just reading it or listening to it on a podcast, but actually doing it. We need to prioritize our relationships, because all of us, I can know this, you can know this, but most of us will still choose to do something that goes after money, fame, status gain, instead of relationships, even though relationships are actually proven to be the number one driver of the thing that we're chasing through the money and status gain as well. So if you ever find yourself torn between, do I want to spend quality time with this person, or do I want to work on this thing? You have to dig deep to the goals around those things. Because if your goal with money and trying to gain your status in whatever work you're doing, as long as it's not obligatory in the moment, if your goal with that is more joy, then remember that you're not the exception. Harvard objectively proved through 85 years of studying that relationships, fostering close and strong relationships with people, is going to bring you that. Now, the third thing here is purposeful work. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, and I hear a lot about it on other podcasts. Research on intrinsic goals shows that pursuing meaning, growth, mastery, or contribution, it leads to more fulfillment than chasing extrinsic rewards like the wealth or the fame. So you want to find something that you were intrinsically motivated to do. Now, this is hard, and I'm not going to sit down and give you a bunch of advice on how to do this right now. But it goes back to, I think, being in touch with yourself. Let's say you have a gratitude practice that you're doing after that first point I made. What you can also do is take some time every morning, every day, to think about what you really want, what your goals for yourself are, what you think pursuing your potential could look like in your life. And if you're pursuing those goals, the intrinsic goals, the ones that feel good on the inside, not just look good to others on the outside, that is when you'll feel more purposeful, and you'll be able to raise that baseline level of happiness because you're constantly evolving in the purpose of the work that you're doing. All right. Number 4 is mind training. Now, another one we hear a ton about, meditation, but it's true. And it can actually build our baseline of happiness up and up and up. So we're not just resetting at the same baseline on that hedonic treadmill. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson's work shows that meditation literally changes our brain structure, and it strengthens areas linked to empathy and resilience. What this means is we don't just reset our own baseline. Through all these habits, we can really build ourselves up in order to build others and their baselines as well. Meditation, as I said, helps with empathy. So we can now understand others better. We can go through all this, understand them, and help them raise their baselines as well, because I don't think we're here to just be stuck chasing these goals with no actual reward. we want to feel in our lives. We want to feel more joy, right? We want abundance. So do the things that are going to bring that into your life. So the real question, I guess, through all of this is not what extreme will make me happy or what can I get now that will make me happy. It's how can I elevate my baseline so that no matter what happens, I will return to a higher place. So the next time you visualize your future, and I think this is important because what we've learned is that people visualize in extremes. When you imagine in extremes. So next time, try to be more realistic with yourself. Don't imagine happiness living in one big success. Don't imagine devastation that lasts forever. Instead, ask, which habits are going to raise my baseline today that I can continue tomorrow? And what systems make me resilient no matter what comes tomorrow? Your happiness, it has a gravity to it. You'll always return to the baseline, but you're not stuck there. Through gratitude, connection, purpose, and practice, you can lift the ground that you stand on. So that when inevitably life normalizes, it normalizes to a higher and more joyful and more fulfilled version of you. That's the real jackpot. If you enjoyed today's episode, well, thank you so much. I'm actually about to have my first day of classes in college. I'm living in London now. That's why last week, I'm sorry, I did not release any audio episodes because I didn't believe that I had anything of high enough quality for you guys. I recorded one, but my mic didn't go well. I put it out on YouTube, but I don't think that it was high enough quality to release to you guys. I don't think it was worth your time. I really do value your time. And if you value mine, I would love a review on this podcast, just wherever you're listening, consuming it, so that I can learn what I need to do to get better. And it really helps propel the show and get bigger guests on so that we can just keep growing together. Thank you so much. I invite you to check out the episode I released with Chad Sonkin, episode 101, if you enjoyed this one, because that one was an hour-long, just complete inspire session. He was amazing, and I think you'll really love it. All right. Thank you for listening to the Grateful Podcast. Stay grateful. I'll see you next week.